Alright, yeah, welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing some historic best of one with a little bit of a deck that probably no one likes to play against, and rightfully so. We're going to be playing some UwR control. It's Jeskai control, and it contains a lot of the cards that I've been playing a lot recently, like Lightning Helix and Prismari Command. I'm just really in an Izzet and Jeskai kind of mood, you know? I don't know. I just really like the Historic Archives and quite a fair few of the Strixhaven cards that have come to Historic. It's a lot of fun. This list is not a lot of fun for our opponent. It's actually quite miserable. I'm sure you've seen some sort of variation on it. This is my take on the list anyway, specifically for Best of One, so we don't have a sideboard, which is why you're going to see the two of Grafdigger's Cages in the main. Find those to be quite useful, honestly. And you'll see a lot of control decks doing that as well, because the one thing that control decks really don't like is infinite combos and Collected Company. And Grafdigger's Cage shuts down quite a lot of those, as hopefully you'll see today. But we also have lots and lots and lots of cool cards. So as I said, we got Lightning Helix in here. It's the reason why we are going for Jeskai. It's nice early game removal, as well as life gain as well, because obviously... you get a lot of situations where control decks go down to a pretty pitiful life total and then try to stabilize from there. But with Lightning Helix, we get to have some early game removal that gains us life, and then hopefully we've got a middling life total instead when we stabilize. That's at least the hope anyway. We've got Memory Lapses as well, 2 mana counter spell. This card is a lot better than it kind of looks. It's one of those cards, and I used to think a lot like this for like cards like Remand. Counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard. So cards like this, I used to always think, why would you ever want to let your opponent cast the spell again? Well, it's actually just really good tempo. Your opponent taps out for a spell. That spell does nothing when it's on the stack. So you counter it, and your opponent has lost an entire turn trying to cast it. They've lost a draw step because they have to redraw that card again, and then next time it comes around, maybe then you will actually counter it with a veto, an absorb, or just kill it with a helix. You basically use Memory Lapse to buy yourself time to make your land drops, because we are a 26 land deck, and we want to be getting to Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, our only win con in the list, and for good reason, really. It's you don't really need anything else. He's a win con, he's a card advantage engine, he's removal, he's just everything. Until they create a new Teferi of, you know, equal power level, there's really no reason not to just play this as your top end I win the game card. But yeah, Memory Lapse is just absurd at allowing you to make your land drops and getting to where you need to go as well. We do have Narset in here along with Commit to Memory. Commit to Memory is pretty decent, so when Narset's around, each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. So in a control matchup, in a mirror, things like Prismari Command start becoming bad for whoever does not have the Narset, because they can no longer draw 2 cards, but they will discard 2 cards. It also shuts off Brainstorm as well, drawing 3 cards and putting 2 back from your hand on top of your library. So if your opponent brainstorms like a Phoenix list, which I think is dying down these days, rightfully so. I think the deck's probably a little bit overrated. But if you got a Narset out, your brainstorms are actually more than a hindrance than a help, because all they really do is say, put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. So maybe we'll get some shame scoops today. I don't know. Maybe I'll shame scoop in a mirror match. We'll have to see, won't we? But Narset shutting off is pretty good there. The -2 allows you to look at the top 4 cards and pick any non-creature, non-land card from among them. So basically our entire deck. We don't run creatures in this list, as I said. Teferi is our only win con. I guess we do have Kahira in the companion zone. It's only in here really because it's free, and that's really about it. A nice split of Wrath and God and Day and Judgment. If you have 2 Day of Judgments, a 2-2 split is more ideal. The reason why you would do this is because cards like Meddling Mage and the Silverquill Silencer, I think it's called, ones that name cards and stop you from casting them or punish you when you're casting them, if we have a split between these two, they can't really efficiently name the right card, and that's a good way of at least hedging your bets against a card that doesn't see too much play. But they are functionally exactly the same card, because there is no regeneration in Arena right now. So Wrath of God just says destroy all creatures, as does Day of Judgment, funnily enough, for the same mana cost. So something to keep in mind there. One veto in case we're up against a control matchup. Otherwise, you don't want to be running too many of these. If it is like goblins, it's completely dead. But that's where Brainstorms come into play, allowing us to shuffle them back in the deck. Brainstorm is usually a sorcery speed card. That's how you want to be using it a lot of the time. If you've ever watched Legacy, you'll see them doing that quite a lot. The reason why it's sorcery speed is because you can draw your cards and then shuffle them away with things like Fabled Passage or activations of Narset, for example. That allows you to then draw a brand new set of cards. So you can either put cards back that are dead in your matchup and then replace them with good cards and then shuffle them away so you don't see them as often. Or you can actually protect from Thought Seasons and things like that, which is really useful. If you're going to do it on your end step, you're basically just going to draw the cards that you put back anyway, which is not really doing you much good. You really want to see those two cards, most of the time anyway, those two cards, you want to see them being shuffled away and drawing a fresh new set of cards. Unless you actually want the cards, then, you know, it's pretty good. And you could hold your Fabled Passage until your end step as well, so you could do it instant speed that way as well. So that's something to consider. Either way, though, I'm going to leave it off here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And yeah, let's get to some spiky control matchup stuff. Oh, this is going to be fun. This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Okay, we're in on the draw against the Lurrus list. We've got removal, we've got counter magic, we've got some card draw to change up this matchup a little bit, because I imagine Narset's not particularly good against anything that Lurrus is playing, and we can be potentially Thoughtseize proof as well. Not on turn 1, but on turn 2. So we'll give this one a shot. Inquisition. Helps themselves to any card they want. I feel like they want to take Brainstorm, because if they've got another hand disruption spell, Brainstorm's going to kind of disrupt their disruption. That being said, Helix is pretty good against like Dreadhorde Arcanist, so maybe that's a consideration. I don't think Absorb or Narset are the picks though. Well, apparently they are. Okay, well, I'm going to shock myself and pass the turn. Got a spare Brainstorm here. And they're blue-black, so they're playing rogues. Would be my guess. We can actually get them to mill our bad cards, technically, as well. Yeah, let's shock in for the Helix. We're going to gain our life back on it anyway, but this just gives us Brainstorm or Helix as an option. They're going to flash in here most likely. End step Brainstorm. Don't you know that Brainstorm's sorcery speed? Alright, put some cards back that they plan on drawing again. And then Thieves Guild Enforcer. Like, Narset's not that good of a card here. So I could just get them to mill it. Or I could just kill the Enforcer. Probably want to just kill the Enforcer. It's a pretty good creature anyway. Ooh, we milled a Narset. Look at that. It's a pretty good creature anyway, so anything they could follow up with is probably going to be just fine. Inquisition, help yourself. Takes Narset. Was not planning on casting Narset next turn, so they've kind of done me a favour. Wind Robber and Passage. Alright. So we're just going to play our Fable Passage. And I think we're passing the turn. I'm not sure there's a 1-mana card I want to play here that really matters, so I think this is probably going to be one of the few instances of an instant speed brainstorm, since we have the Fable Passage. The card that we're going to draw on our next turn's not going to be what we put back anyway. So take 1. Mills the steam vents and passes. Yeah, let's try and get rid of some excess lands, I guess. There's a Tef. Alright, so get rid of steam vents. Get rid of fortress. And shuffle. Grab an island. And then we'll hold up an absorb here, probably. We're in no real rush. We're at 44 cards. We have a commit to memory in our deck. So they can counter this if they have Drown in the lock. Should probably just go for it anyway. Again, probably gonna want to get rid of it regardless. Buy myself some time. They just tap out for an Into the Story. That's very punishable by death. I think I'm just going to slap down a Teferi now. Day of Judgment. Hope to draw a Memory Lapse, I guess. Hope they don't have a Spell Pierce.
Let's slow this down. Keep up the pace.
We draw a land. Not ideal, of course. And they're just going to brainstorm. Sure. I'm guessing the reason why they were so aggressive to take my Narsets is because they had a handful of brainstorms and Into the Stories. I don't know. It didn't seem all that necessary. So does this have to deal damage to me? It does. Alright. So they have to leave Teferi alone if they want to do some milling. Again, I don't have a 1-drop that I'm digging into, so I'm not really planning on brainstorming here. And I'm feeling quite comfortable with my situation. Not anymore. Now we need to find a board wipe, but that's doable. Our opponents drop their guard again. Whiff on the board wipe, whiff on the board wipe. Fantastic. Our odds just ever increased. Here we go. Alright. Board wipe potentially secured here. So let's draw a card.
Hurry.
There we go. Alright. We had pretty good odds of that happening, so not too much luck involved on that one. And now we've got Memory Lapse plus Brainstorm open because of the Teferi tick-up. I don't know if I really care to Brainstorm right now, so yeah, let's just untap, untap. Question is, what are we lapsing? I'll lapse Allurus, if that's what they want to play. I will not lapse that. That's not worth lapsing at all. Alright, take up first. Get the lay of the land. We might get like a Fable Passage off our Brainstorm, which would make it worth playing over our basics. Something to consider. We did. Alright, so get rid of Hallowed Fountain, get rid of Mountain. Got plenty of lands, so let's shuffle those away. If you can slap down this as Canter, that's going to be huge as well. Grab the islands. As Canter down. 1, 2, 3. So if I got Kahira into hand, I would not be able to do both Memory Lapse and Helix, and I think I want that option. So a Thought Thief. I'm gonna Helix. Oh, well, apparently I'm gonna untap first. Hang on. Just so they don't get to untap. I'm a little bit paranoid about that, to be honest. No dive downs from them. We carry on. We're going to have a flipped Searcher's Canter, which should probably win us the game. Opponent has a Lurrus. We're going to lapse it. They'll have a Drown in lock because we haven't seen one this game. Wow, okay. Maybe just an Into the Story then?
That was uncalled for.
Draws the Lurrus, plays the Lurrus. Fair enough. And then they can get, I guess, Soaring Thought Thief's the most mana efficient. But it taps them out. Not that they could play anything off of their mana anyway. Gonna go for the card draw. Alright, so yep, that's exactly what we were going to be digging for, and we just managed to draw it anyway. Let's tick up first.
Hold that thought.
Play a land, play Wrath of God, get rid of Lurrus. And yep, that'll do it. I think we were pretty much in control for most of that game. It's just a matter of finding our commit to memory so that we can shuffle our graveyard back in. We do kind of give them 7 cards by doing that though, so it might not necessarily be the best idea. I think I've got 3 Narsets in the list at this point in time, so there's only 1 Narset left for the memory Narset combo. But we should get there anyway. We've got the active Azcanta, so that's Azcanta, 1, 2, 3. Grab any card. Teferi on taps gives us 3 mana to play with, so any of our absorbs, any of our vetoes, memory lapses, something like that we can hold open. And we can even untap the Azcanta, I guess. And if we don't want to do anything, we activate him again. And activating this twice a turn is kind of backbreaking and will usually win you the game. So pretty good. Next game. Alrighty then, we're in on the play. We've got a turn 1 Brainstorm if we want it, which could help us with a little bit of a better mana base, I guess, but I don't know. Am I in a rush to Brainstorm turn 1? I think I am, because if they go Thoughtseize, then I can protect my cards. We'll do it end step. Well, now I don't really care so much, because I could potentially just draw a Fabled Passage, so let's just take it nice and slow and steady. Our opponent with a Mountain into Embereth. It's going to be Goblins. Okay. So I'm digging for Wrath of God at this point. And I could also draw Lightning Helix, so I'm in no rush to Brainstorm just yet either. Okay, lots of memory lapses. Let's get rid of Triumph Narset, I think, here. Actually, maybe this might be Teferi. I'll close out the game eventually, it's just a matter of actually not dying first, and I think we hold up and memory lapse in order to do that. And there's a Muxus. This is going to be a good cage matchup as well. Wily Goblin. Lapsed. Lapse is actually, interestingly, quite strange in this matchup because we put a card back on top and then Conspicuous Snoop can be activated off of it, which is interesting. We're going to go for a Narset here because we don't really care to draw Teferi. We actually want exactly that card right there. So, Muxus is a dead card. And now it's just a matter of drawing our Wrath of God.
I must stay focused.
And deciding when to use it, because I don't think now is the time to use it. So we've got Absorb. I do need a land drop. These cards are kind of just fine, though. They don't draw cards except for Gem Palm cycling, so I don't think I care to keep my Narset alive. It's just basically extra life points at this stage. I could go with a Lightning Helix, maybe. That could be kind of useful. Didn't get that, though. Alright, so let's make our land drop. Let's go Steam Vents on top, Narset on top, draw the Narset, play the Triumph, pass the turn. They've got 3 mana. Yeah, they know that they don't care about Narset either. Is this a lapse turn? I think this could be a lapse turn. Yeah, I mean, Skirt Prospect is the only card they can play, which would be annoying if we had Lightning Helixes, but we don't. Sketchy playing Narset here when I've got Absorb, but what can they play off of it? Really, that matters? I don't think there's really much, to be honest. Also, gains me a bit of life here. Because now they kind of have to at least hit it once in order for me to not draw off of it again, so Snoop has to hit it. And we continue to gain life off of everything they play with the triple Absorb now, and then once it becomes a little bit too much for us, we can Wrath of God, but like this gains 3, so the current board state doesn't really matter. Got plenty of time with triple Absorb. Muxus is a dead card, so their big old ramp spell's not going to do much either. Hitting me, interesting. Helix is a god tier draw there. I mean, Wrath is really good. Helix is also really good. Helix means I can kill and absorb. I think that's probably what I want to take, because they're not going to actually add creatures to this board, and if they do add more than one, I've still got the Wrath in my hand anyway. Let's hit the Snoop. Hit it now in case they draw the Ringleader and there's a Krenko on top. That would be really bad. And avoidable as well. So, happily take 2 here. Down to 13. They've got another Snoop. I can Helix that. It's going to be a Chieftain. I can absorb that. I think I'll just fire this off now and be as mana efficient as I possibly can. We've only got 3 mana plays, so Search for Iskander here is huge. And it's flipping. Only needs 7, right? Yes. Alright, we've got exactly enough in already, so we can keep a card on top if we really want to. Don't care about Wily Goblin. I think as long as we're taking 3 and our absorbs gain us 3, we're in a pretty reasonable spot. This I do not need, because Azcanta is my 6th land for double absorb. So there's my land drop in a nutshell. And we drew another Helix, which is awesome. Kill any of those hasty lords. And there's one of them. I'll let it go. Maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. This does allow me, though, to activate Azcanta at the same time. And they've already gone to combat, so they can't play like a chieftain or anything like that. So I'll take their 3. Go Azcanta. What's the value of Memory Lapse? I don't think there's much value in it just yet. I'm looking for my Teferi so I can close out this game at this stage, or even just hit land drops is also quite nice, but... Yeah, I guess maybe if I took Lapse I could have Wrathed here, and I wouldn't have had to care too much about the follow-up. I still don't really care about the follow-up. I think Helix as counter again is still just fine. There aren't too many lines of play that they can make that make this a bad idea. As long as they don't have haste, like Krenko off the top isn't a problem, for example. So I'm just going to hit the Chieftain again. Hold up and absorb until my end step. Day of Judgment Prismari command. 2 Wraths basically means I don't need that. Prismari command could get me my land drop, and it also kills a Wily Goblin. We've got our land drop. We already have 6 mana to play with, so we have 2 spells a turn now, which is a really good spot to be in. Teferi Memory Lapse is like my next goal, I think. Whirly Boy. I'm going to absorb Whirly Boy. Because I think if I got Commit to Memory going, that would be pretty good, and it's a reason why they shouldn't leave Narset alive, technically. Perhaps I should do this. I should have done it on combat if I was going to do it. 2 damage, draw, I think is the line. There's the Fairy. We don't need a second cage. We don't need a second Wrath. They're all hasty, so I'd rather counter them than kill them on the next turn, because otherwise they can just beat down on Teferi, which would be annoying. So Teferi is now a threat that they have to attack instead, and we have Absorb open. So 1/2 allows me to hold up and as counter. I'm probably not going to use it. Yeah, Steam Vent's tapped, I think, is the plan. My concern would be hasty creatures or Lord effects that are enough to kill Teferi. Anything else is probably not worth absorbing, and then next turn, whatever they play, if it isn't good enough... See, this is 6 points, so I want to absorb this. If it isn't good enough, then we Wrath the board, and then absorb anything that follows up after that, I think. So they do have a War Chief. That's 4 points, not 5, though. And we don't care about the Tuck. So we're going to draw a card. Going to Wrath of God. 1, 2, 3 for Absorb. And then we've got Azcanta plus 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3 for Absorb. Azcanta. Yeah, this is good. That and that. So, 2 things that we can do. Ringleader as a tap out. I'm a little bit skeptical about doing this immediately, so maybe we'll do an Azcanta, see what we would draw. I might just take the Memory Lapse. I think if I was going for Brainstorm, I would just be brainstorming to try and find counters anyway, so let's absorb their card advantage. I think really what I need is Commit to Memory at this point. because I'm probably running out of counter magic in my deck. Cycle. Prismari command. Let's play Glacial Fortress. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We could do Kahira, and it holds open 3 mana for command. I think it's just hold up and command and memory lapse though. Or maybe actually, let's go as Cancer. Let's commit. Okay, so we untap, untap. As counter if they do nothing. Commit if they do something big. Lapse if they don't do anything at all. We don't care about that. Don't care about that. At least not right now. And that we care about. So we commit. And that wins us the game. Yeah. Again, we can't memory because I've got Grafdigger's Cage in play. I keep forgetting about that. It's still a really important card to have nonetheless. But still. It's like that Krenko, that Muxus, I don't think actually would have ever even managed to resolve the way that they played their game there. They didn't get the Skirt Prospectors until very late. I guess they did have Wily Goblins. Yeah, at least 3 Wily Goblins means 3 treasures. I think they could have cast it given the chance, but yeah, I think we played a really solid control game and prevented our opponent from really dealing any damage here. Literally, we're at 20. So, yeah, not too bad. I think we were very close to running out of counter magic, though. We've got 4 memory lapses. We saw 1, 2, 3, and yeah, there's 1 more memory lapse. I think I've got 3 absorbs, so that's 1, 2, 3. We've run out of absorbs. We've used all of our helixes, yeah. We were actually, at this point, virtually out of defensive resources, so it's really good our opponent scooped there, because I think if they'd have kept playing, they might have stood a chance of winning the game, but we do technically have a Mind Rot with Prismari command. They draw for the turn, we make them discard it, because Narset's in play, which is kind of cute. I don't know if I would want to use it in that manner, though, because we do need the cards ourselves, so I think I'd sooner memory lapse it or something like that, but either way, next game. Alrighty then, we're in, and we've got turn 1 cage if we want it, otherwise this hand's pretty bad. I think I've probably got to throw it back. I don't know. Memory lapses on the play is nice to slow them down. This just feels like it has to be a mull. I could be so punished if this Grafdigger's Cage is useful, though. And it is so very useful in a lot of matchups. You know what? Let's YOLO it. Let's see what happens. We might not get a chance to Grafdigger's Cage successfully. And yeah, I don't imagine they'll necessarily have a turn 1 play, though. If they are a Coco deck, then Llanowar Elves on turn 1 is probably something. One at Nices, that's potentially... Oh, wow. Mock Samba. Tormod's Crypt. Emry. Okay, well, they're a little bit of a combo list. Can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries, so Emry doesn't work. You know? That do be how it is sometimes. Yeah, I'll just pass with Memory Lapse open to keep our Grafdigger's Cage safe. Potentially they might have a Brazen Borrower or something. I don't know how they combo without their graveyard, because I'm assuming their whole point was an Emry Spellbomb lock to draw infinitely, basically, with maybe Paradox Engine or something like that. So let's just attack the important cards here and slowly whittle out a game. The 20-turn clock they've got on us right now is absolutely no concern whatsoever, so... I do wonder whether or not I should get a Narset down and maybe tick her down once and then leave Emery to attack her several times. That could be an option. They've got 2 mana open right now, so they could have memory lapses and whatnot as well in their list. I just don't know. I think maybe second cage, hold up memory lapse is probably the best thing to do. We're not in any rush to win, so let's make sure it's doubly locked down. Now they'll need like Flood of Tears or Baral's expertise. So 3 mana, take 1. Redland and Galazeth. I don't feel like you're worth really lapsing. Although I could get down my Narset if I did, and this kind of takes her entire turn to do again. Could be wrong. We could also just draw another memory lapse. I'm just going to go with a Narset here. If that was their play, I'm fairly confident that I can probably drop down the lapse. And Wrath of God is a good answer to Emery plus Galazeth here. We even get to keep our Narset in play. Probably not going to tick her down, because it looks like our opponent will be slowly trying to draw their way to a victory. I guess I don't have double white, though. Forgot about that little bit of information. Right, well, maybe I am gonna, do Narset them. Commit to memory. Suppose I could take a commit. If they're a mill deck, then the memory side is pretty good. We saw Aetherflux Reservoir, though, so I highly doubt that's the case. Don't need another board wipe, let's just take the commit. Allows us to leave that open. And then next turn we have Wrath of God plus Memory Lapse. Gonna need a way to close out this game sooner rather than later, I guess. Though maybe not. I'm not sure if it really would matter too much, but they know they're not resolving anything important here without a Pact of Negation. Mind's Desire, eh? Inspiring Stature. It's a right little spicy meatball they've got over there. But consider this, had we not had the cage in our opener, Emery would actually be drawing a million cards with Aether Spellbomb, which is annoying to say the least. So I'm pretty much going to commit most things that look dangerous here. It's a creature I'm not going to bother, though. Seagate Restoration. Yeah, I mean, that's probably not worth letting them have. Teferi, we go Wrath plus Memory Lapse. Opponent untaps, and then we've got Teferi ready to go. We actually really don't want to be memorying because we know that their graveyard is useless right now, so I guess we also have Tormod's Crypt as well, so we don't shuffle any of our stuff back in. But we don't really need to. Aetherflux Reservoir. On its own, I do not care. You're going to need to give me a reason why I need to care about that reservoir.
I'm known for my excellence. We need to move quickly.
Lightning Helix. Okay. You and you, I guess. So if they go for another tap out here, actually they can't, right? Because we got rid of their legendaries, so Mox Amber's shut down. Size one to care about. In some capacity. I kind of feel like he's not one to care about right now, though. I'll just Wrath it. I don't have a good use for a Wrath other than killing Sai here, so... let's just do that. You can sack 2 artifacts to draw. But I feel like that comes at quite a hefty price. Take up first.
Hurry.
If they had Metallic Rebuke, I would probably want to shock myself here. Let's take my chance. Like, they're not going to deal a lot of damage. If they're going to kill me in any meaningful way, it's going to be 50 damage with Reservoir. So let's just shock in, use our life total as a resource to make sure that we're playing around the maximum amount of things, which is that being a Metallic Rebuke, or a Supreme Will, or a Quench, anything like that. And we pass, we untap, untap. And now we have Lapse and Helix open. Our opponent has 4 mana. This game should be locked down. In a wonderfully painful way for him. We're going to let that go, because it basically fills their graveyard full of cards that... ooh, they do have a Baral's Expertise. Haha, named the correct card, apparently. Well, something to be aware of. Baral's Expertise bounces artifacts, so... my double cage is not necessarily all that great. Sure, I'll just Helix the Emery. They can gain a little bit of life here. I'm gonna get to my ult before they get to 50, though. So this is them gaining 2, I believe? I wish there was a counter that allowed you to see. Extra Tefris are not exactly ideal. Let's play the land. We want to hold up and Memory Lapse. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I can get Kahira in play. I'm gonna leave my Fable Passage for brainstorming. I don't need the land, so as long as I don't need it, I'm not gonna use it. Mind Stone is fine. Like, the little increments of life they're gaining now are completely undone by my Kahira. So they gained 3 so far, I'm gonna hit them for 3. Then I'm gonna tick my Teferi up to... well, that I'm gonna Lapse. That should set them back enough, I think. So we know they're going to draw that next turn. So we'd like an answer to it. We're going to be ticking up here.
Hurry.
Cycle the Triome. Helix. Sure, we'll play a Passage, hit you for 3. I mean, if they're gonna win, it's gonna have to be now. Because I'm gonna ult my Teferi and play a new one, start exiling permanents, starting with the Flux Reservoir. So they've got 2 things they can bounce, I guess. I mean, they can bounce the Reservoir as well. They probably should be at this point, because I don't think they're comboing off right here. Draws 2. One of the draws was a land. Replays the Mind Stone. Replays the Mox Amber, gaining 3. And then the last card is not good enough. The Mind Stone draws. It was an Ornithopter, probably. So they're at 37. I ult my Teferi. It's been years since I've done that. And then I replay my Teferi. Every time I draw, I exile a permanent of my choice, which is probably going to start with the Aetherflux Reservoir, which shuts off their game plan and requires them to use another. After that, I'll just start hitting their lands, cut them off of red to start, and then see where we go from there. I mean, we could even go with a memory now that I think about it. Memory, draw 7, exile 7, leaves them with virtually nothing, and they definitely can't come back from that. Even if they've got 7 cards, they'll have no lands, is the thinking there. But yeah, pretty good, and what a crappy hand to start off with, only to find out that it's actually maybe the greatest hand that we could have had against this deck. So, you know, in a best of 3 scenario, I would have absolutely snap keep that opening hand, but in a best of 1, you've kind of got to, you know, hedge all bets. I don't know, I just kind of felt like YOLOing it, and we just, yeah, completely shut off this combo nonsense. Pretty good. Next game. Alrighty then, we're in, and sounds a bit interesting. I think it's keepable. It's not a turn 1 Grafdigger's Cage, unless we really want it to be, which I don't think we do. Otherwise, it's Hold Up and Helix, or play Grafdigger's Cage, and then on 3, it's either Absorb or Narset. I think when Narset's bad, Absorb should be fine. When Absorb is fine, maybe Narset's also fine. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. We'll get our tap land down anyway. We want to be playing things on 3. Alright, so this is a matchup where Cage is good and Absorb is good. So that's nice. I could prevent myself from being shocked here, but if I'm playing down Cage, might as well just go ahead and do that. So we're playing against the Cundulus ramp deck. So Grafdigger's Cage is good against Mystic Forge. That's really about the only thing it is good against, admittedly. But still, you don't really want your opponent having one of those in play. On 4, they can go Hedron, Archive. Not much they can play that shuts down Narset, though. This shuts down their Mind Stone, which is nice. And allows us to basically grab the only card that we need, which is Counter Magic. So that only works on my turn, unless they want to do the Scry. So start with Narset, get the maximum amount of information we can out of our turn. Opponent goes for their Scry. Destroy target artifact. That seems reasonable. And then we'll drop down a Rogrim Triome. We can also Mind Rot them with Prismari Command as well, which is kind of nice. Karn. No. 2 mana left for them. They can't draw cards. So they pass. We're going to go with... might as well just go with Sulphur Falls here. It allows us to absorb and Helix, or command and Helix, one or the other. They are going to draw a card. I'm going to allow them to do that. We also want to keep open Helix for the Crawling Barons, which is going to be a problem eventually. It's one of the things we can't deal with, and a reason why maybe I should have put Field of Ruin in the list. The mana base is kind of greedy, though. So it's hard to say whether or not that's a good idea. Yeah, sure, fine. I think we just tried to hit their payoffs, most of all, and, well... We also slapped down Teferi. Opponent scries to the top. Good to know. They draw that card. So we know that they probably want to be casting that card, so we want to be holding up an Absorb or Prismari command. So let's shock ourselves. Untap our Triomes. Gives us perfect mana to play with. And kind of hope for the best. It's Karn, Scion of Urza. No. It's not exactly the biggest payoff for them, of course, but... yeah, we actually want to draw first, because we got Brainstorm, we could draw Fable Passage. We did not. Let's still Brainstorm, though. Because we've got an untap with Teferi we probably want to be using. Day of Judgment's bad. Search for Cantor's fine. Let's go down the Steam Vents here. Let's put Day of Judgment on top. There's a chance we want to draw it. We can go Search for Cantor now. That allows us to change the top of our library a little bit. And we've got 5 mana with Teferi so far, which is all we really need. So do we want to... I think we want to play Ardenvale here and cycle the Triumph. I think that's the plan. I don't think we'll need Day of Judgment. The only creatures that really play is Ulamog, and he's indestructible, of course. So, like, we are probably going to change the top card and mess around with Azcantor a bit. To the top. Okay. So they've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So Ugin the Spirit Dragon is going to be a waste of time. We're going to memory lapse that. So I think I'm cycling just to reset the top of my deck. So I'm going to draw the Day of Judgment. I really wish it was the land now, actually. That was probably a silly little assessment from my part. And then the upkeep Searcher's Cantor is going to get rid of the land. Because, I mean, we don't need to make our land drops at this point, but I would have preferred it over a Day of Judgment. Let's draw. We only got 6 cards in our yard, eh? Okay. Keep the Hallowed Fountain, maybe, for Brainstorm purposes. We actually have an Ugin coming up, now that I think about it. That's not ideal. I'm going to have to do this. Destroy artifact. So, loot, kill. Just realized we have no counter magic in our hand. Not good. I was honestly under the assessment that, assumption, should I say, that we were going to... let's get rid of you. We were going to flip Azcantor, and therefore my odds of drawing what I needed were extremely high, but commit works here. Boop, boop. Commit plus Helix. They have a Crawling Barrens. I don't think they've noticed that just yet, so I don't really want to hover it to find out how many counters it gets, but I think it gets 2 counters at a time per activation, which means Helix can kill it on 1 activation. So we're going to commit the Ugin. We're actually going to steamroll our opponent here now, because we've got a Narset in play and a Memory ready to go, and a Teferi tick up. So I'm actually going to Helix my opponent, because I'm going to be putting it back in the deck anyway. Graveyard that. Transform that. There's a Fable Passage. We can use that later, I suppose. So we want a Memory... Oh, I've got Cage. I can't Memory. Never mind. Yeah, I guess that means I want to... search for his counter here. Let's stick it with Teferi. Doman's Veto, solid. Solid card. Alright. Let's brainstorm. Get rid of those. Second as counters, totally fine, of course. It allows us to do that shuffle off the top, as well as having as counter activations here. We might as well go for one, in case we find a memory lapse. Good stuff. Game is over. Opponent cannot win. We have double counter spell. We have active as counters, plural. You and you. If our opponent does nothing of note here, then we get to activate as counter, and yeah, we don't really need that memory combo with Narset here. I think I'd sooner have Cage in play, though, than and not lose to our opponent going off with all of their nonsense, then accidentally shut off my memory here. So here comes Crawling Barons, the only play they can make. Has to go after Teferi, otherwise they lose. Love to see it.
Enough.
Enough. Alright, as counter. Second Narset. It's probably better than second Teferi. Helix is not enough damage to kill Crawling Barons, but nothing in my deck technically is on its own. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to decline the flip. Gonna tick up. I guess we actually have Castle Ardenvale as well, so that's not too bad. Gotta remember to use that. All this talk about them not knowing the Crawling Barons is there. I also did not know my Castle Ardenvale was here either. Wondering if I probably did have enough mana to Ardenvale. Although it's 5 mana total, right? Yeah. I think I had 4. New Narset.
Focused and disciplined. Encounter no. Keep an open mind.
Absolutely grab the Absorb. And pass the turn. 26 cards. Remember, we can do the extremely fun Teferi Tuck, so we never actually deck ourselves. It's an alternative win con to Teferi minus on Teferi, so that we draw the same Teferi over and over again, and eventually our opponent draws all of their cards and loses. So this time we're going to activate Ardenvale, which still allows us to leave open Absorb. Not that I imagine our opponent has anything worth absorbing. It's a Fatal Push deck. And what are you doing? You going after my Teferi? With Veto and Absorb, I'll lapse this. It's maybe an unnecessary risk, of course, but this allows me to actually kill the Crawling Barons, assuming I still have a basic left in my deck, which I think I do. I have 5 total. Anything that's white or red here is good enough, so I'll just take a white source. Helix the Barons. Guardian Idol is the next card to care about. But looks like we don't need to. And the game is over. Fantastic. Alright guys, well those are some pretty long games most of the time, so I imagine we've run along for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's deck. It's obviously on the spikier side, but it's kind of hard to build a control deck that's not spiky from what I can tell. So, you know, I like to keep a little bit of variety, play all archetypes, and you know, Teferi Tribal, it just so happens to be. But yeah, if you did enjoy the content, I would really appreciate if you do hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And without further ado, gonna end it off here. Take care and have a wonderful night.